Right. So, first of all, it is fair to say that, of course, the 1950s and 60s were different. We'd just come out of the war. So, but you have to consider all the different factors. So one was that factor, and the other factor that was the one I mentioned. So when Republicans or conservatives say, well, high taxes by definition will lead to slower growth, well, we know because of our experience in the 1950s and 60s that isn't true. Now, you can say there are other factors, but you can't say that the highest marginal tax rate being 70 or even 90% slows down growth, because it didn't. And it wasn't in Japan and Switzerland. It was right here.
You seem to be identifying a higher tax rate in the 1950s with higher level of growth. So if that's the case, why not just tax everybody at 100% and we can have massive growth from here to eternity?
Because let me just ask, since we're talking about taxes, do you think we'll see tax reform in the next few months here?
Okay. So let me try to address all that in your question as well. So just real quick, look, guys, I said it however many questions ago. Of course, you have to find the right balance on all of these issues, including taxes. So I never said there's no end to how much you can.
I'm just asking why, though.
Yeah. So this leads to wait a minute. This leads to big government versus small government. You're asking me what the ideal tax rate is, and then you did a straw man there for a second and said it should be 100%. I never said that.
No.
In fact, I said
no. You said the economy.
Let me understand.
You said the economy grew faster when the top marginal tax rate was 91%. So I'm asking you, why shouldn't the top tax rate or all tax rates be 91%? You seem to be identifying a higher rate of growth with higher taxation. So I'm asking you, on principle, you keep talking about the glories of a mixed economy. So now tell me about the glories of capital. I've heard about the glories of high tax rates. I've heard about the glories of government-provided health care. Now tell me some of the glories of actual capitalism, which is the basis for all the things you're talking. Tell me why it's good.
Right. So now, look, when I use the example of the 91% and 70% to give you a sense of that I was surprised and you'd be surprised to find out that our economy was booming in those times. That's not to say that that is the right tax rate for us today. And so the exercise of finding the right tax rate is, guys, try to follow along, okay? It's called logic. So it would be preposterous to set the tax rate at 0. It would be preposterous to set it at 100%. So what we have to do as a society is figure out where we can maximize the most amount of good for the country.
Should it be closer to 0 or closer
to
to
government,
100?
but not too much away from us. So, for example, the reason why when taxes are higher, it winds up being better for the economy is because it recirculates the money. So if you give it to the rich, this is hilarious. If you're uneducated, please at least don't make it obvious.
This is the most interesting conversation on taxes I've heard.
If you don't know the concept of recirculation of money, then go look it up. And so the way that it works is that when the middle class has more money, disposable income, they spend it. Why? Because they're not living in the lap of luxury. They're not saving it for their yacht. So they need to buy food for their family. They need education for their family. So they spend it and it goes back into the economy. If you just give it in supply side economics to the rich and hope that it trickles down on us eventually decades later, what they wind up doing with it is something that is logical. They save it. But that means it does not recirculate in the economy. And that is why when you have lower taxes, ironically, the economy does worse. But of course, it's a balancing act.
Okay, so now you're making a strong case for Keynesian economics, which is totally fine, obviously. The problem with Keynesian economics is that it doesn't even work in theory because, again, once you go to the logical extreme, which is remove all of the money from the rich people who are saving all their money and give it to all the poor people to buy hamburgers, that doesn't help the economy or spur the economy. What spurs the economy is a higher level...
Quiet.
What spurs the economy is the creation of new products and services, and that is only going to be done by people who have expendable capital to actually invest in the new products and services that we all enjoy. This is what creates economic growth. It's also worth noting that this myth that spending is inherently better for an economy than saving, that's only true if you're talking about somebody who's actually taking the cash and just shoving it into their mattress. Banks are in the business of lending. When they take the money in, they don't just stick it in Al Gore's fake lockbox. They actually lend the money back out to people to actually create new businesses and new products. You had an investor, right? When you started TYT, you were given $4 million by Buddy Roemer to start TYT. That's great. That's the way business should work, right? But that money it didn't come from a bunch of poor people buying hamburgers. It came from a very, very wealthy guy who gave you money to create a business a lot of people want to patronize. If you want better products and better services, you need more investment in the products and services. The basic name, trickle-down economics. The basic name trickle-down economics is not something that any conservative even proposed. It's a leftist revision of what economics actually is, because you're not giving me the money. It was my money in the first place, created through voluntary transactions that I had with others. I've not stolen money from anyone, neither have you. And the idea that money has to be forcibly taken from you and handed to somebody at the bottom end of the economic spectrum to somehow jog the economy, that may jog McDonald's, but is not going to jog all of the creation of the products and services that make all of our lives much better today than they were 30 years ago in terms of the stuff we have access to. So, and finally, as far as the idea that Republicans pass tax cuts because they're beholden to their donors, okay, and Democrats pass tax increases because the unions give them hundreds of millions of dollars every year, and I don't see Democrats complain about this.
So, you got me there. The unions give money to the Democrats. Are you angry about that? I mean, does it upset you as much as, bankers giving money to Republicans? No. The corporations give way more than the unions. So
it depends which corporations. That's not really true.
Look it up. You can Google it. It's really easy. But let's not forget that Republicans do the same and worse. Who was the one who came up with the Southern strategy? That was the Republican Party. And the Southern strategy was, let's go get racist white voters in the South. That's a fact. So, once again, it's this wonderful capitalist invention called Google. Google it. So, two Republican chairmen have said, yes, we did do that strategy, and we apologize. So that's a fact. They're the ones who invented identity politics. So when you like identity politics when it serves your interests, but all of a sudden when we say, hey, can black people have the same rights as white people? Oh, identity politics. Can gay people have the same rights as straight people? Identity politics. It's called equality. Look into it. It's called America. Okay?
All right, well, I think we now know.
USA! USA! USA!
All right.
Equality for all of us!
Okay. All right. I want to respond to this is a
Ben,
point.
just very quickly, and then we'll have to wrap it up.
This is very quick, okay?
Very quick.
Okay, I want to respond to a point. This is a point that Cenk made last year in his debate with Dinesh repeatedly for about an hour. Was the Southern strategy with regard to the Republicans. Okay, I'd like to point out the idea that the entire South solidly moved into the Republican category because of the Civil Rights Act is historically false and has been debunked multiple times by people ranging from Sean Trent at Real Clear Politics to professors at the University of Pennsylvania. And there's a bunch of ways to debunk it, including the fact that the Congress did not switch Republican in the South until 1994. Okay, did it take 30 years for the racists to realize what was going on? 21 senators from the South were Democrats. How many of them became Republicans after the Civil Rights Act? The answer, 1. The other 20 stayed Democrats. In 1952, Eisenhower did not win a ton of the South. Eisenhower did win, however, 7 states in the South in 1956, after he sent federal troops down south. The reason that the Republican Party started to win in the South, it began in the 1950s, not after the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and it was largely due to the movement of industry down south. It was new fringe members of the Republican Party, younger members of the Republican Party, who switched over to the Republican Party in the South, not old Democrats, who remained old Democrats and are still old Democrats today.
All right. So I'm going to jump in here.
Okay, I got it. Real quick. You're right.
Very quick.
By the way,
final vote.
Jimmy Carter launched his 1980 campaign at the headquarters, that town in Alabama that was the headquarters for the KKK. So to pretend that it was only Republicans playing the bad and evil race strategy is just a lie.
All right.
Okay.
Last word.
That was him responding to his own thing. Okay. So, real quick, because you're right, we had a whole almost an hour-long debate on the Southern strategy. You guys always cherry pick certain windows of time. In this very narrow window of time, this people change to that.
I just went from 1952 to 1994.
Hold on. if you're so right, why did two heads of the RNC come out and say, yes, we did the Southern strategy, and we apologize? Why did Pat Buchanan say to me on MSNBC, yes, we did the Southern strategy, yes, we got whites to vote for us in the South, and we had a good run? Okay, it wasn't me saying it, was Republican leaders and Buchanan, who did it at the Nixon campaign, admitting that that was exactly the strategy.
And there were some members of the Republican Strategy Council who were doing evil things. That doesn't mean all the people who voted for the Republicans were voting for them because of those things. And to impute that motive to tens of millions of people down south is to ignore not only every public opinion poll done, but also to fail to recognize history.